and take uh, a few moments to read a part of his profile, if you allow so, because I think we'd like to hear him more than people listening to me reading his profile. Mr. Ved Jain is the former president of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, a fellow member of ICAI for more than 3 decades of standing. He was elected 2 times to the Central Council of ICAI. He has been a member of the Income Tax Appellate Tribunal, Ministry of Law, Justice and Company Affairs. He's a member of Board of Tariff Advisory Committee of Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority, popularly known as IRDA, governing body of National Institute of Public Finance and Policy, and editorial board of the selected orders of ITAT. He's also a member of various committees as the National Advisory Committee on Accounting Standards, constituted by the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, Audit Advisory Board of the Government Accounting Standards Advisory Board, and I can go on. So allow me to cut it short and over to you, Mr. Jain.
Thank you, Vivekji. Good evening, friends. President of the Chamber, PhD Chamber, Shri Sanjay Agrawal ji. I can see KK Maheshwari ji here. I can see Mr. Harsha Upadhyay and Mr. Vijay Bhushan ji, a very dear friend who has been with having interacting a lot. And of course, Mr. Vivek here and other office bearers, participant and member of the chambers, and also member of the, I think, Capital Market, where Mr. Sabharwal was head of, invited, I think, many members here. It has been my privilege here to be to share my thought process on this budget 21-22 with all of you. The budget is now almost more than 50 hours old. So it was presented on 1st February from 11 to 1 o'clock, and now we are at 4:30 around, or 5 o'clock. So it is more than 50 hours. So many things have been said in electronic media, print media, and everywhere. And everyone has given a thumbs up. When Sanjay Agrawal ji was speaking, the president of chamber, he was appreciating the way the budget has been presented and the market and the way everybody is happy appreciating. And I can just say in one word how this budget is. The capital market and the index stock exchange has indicated it. And if I translate it, beauty needs no recommendation. What this budget is, you can see the result which are coming up and the way people are going on. I have not heard anyone on the electronic media and other print media, which people usually interact with me when I'm sitting as one of the panelists, saying anything wrong about this budget. Anything which they expected has not come, except one thing. Everyone was looking forward, some tax will come, which didn't come. Everyone was saying some COVID tax, COVID surcharge, cess, or some increase in tax rate, a state duty, wealth tax will come up, but nothing happened. Maybe a point to rejoice, but not to disappoint whenever we're thinking it. And you could imagine, I believe, how the people were keeping their breathless when she was talking, started from 11 o'clock, and when she was, I think, putting money one after the other, whatever a development fund, infrastructure fund, authority, one after the other, people thought from where she will bring the money, and then they thought something is coming up. So even I could see the index going down somewhere here between. And at 12 o'clock past, when the movement, I believe 12:15 around, she just announced the fiscal deficit of the current year is 9.5%, and I want to continue the next year with 6.8. I could make out there is no new tax. She had taken the bull by the horn, and now she is going all hog. No, I don't want to raise taxes. I want to put more money in the hand of the industry and the people. It will help them in increasing the purchasing power, making investment, and it will improve the supply chain the way she did it. See the reform the way she has carried out. Many of you have noticed, and Sanjay ji has also spoken, others has spoken. Now what she says, insurance sector, FDI raised, you can go up to 74%. That's a very big relief, I believe, to the sector, and shows the roadmap to the reform. What she said, 2 private sector bank or public sector bank will be privatized. So she's looking to the privatization of the banking industry as well. And what she said, LIC IPO will come this year. She said 21-22, and she had moved the amendment to the LIC Act. And another thing probably which you have missed out, and I could see also not coming so highly in the electronic media and print media, about the reform on the distribution of the power company. You say that he said that distribution is a monopoly, whether it's a private sector or public sector. Now today, only one supplier, one distributor in one city. Now she said there will be more than one supplier distributor for the power. Now I believe this will be a very big game changer. We have seen what has happened in telecommunication before 1995 when it was a monopoly of the telecommunication. Of course, it was state-owned, not by the private sector. But 1995 onward, when private sector has entered, public sector is also competing. MTNL, BSNL are competing. But we see various power telecommunication players, how they have improved the efficiency and how they have brought the rate down. This will improve the efficiency. I believe for an industry, since I am in an industry chamber here, business chamber, look, if I get a power and I have an option to get the power from 2 or 3 suppliers or distributor, I will try to find out which gives me a better rate, and the distributor will also like to have an industry which can in a bulk supply and etc. can give it. This is a very big reform which I'm thinking is coming out on this issue. The budget has all the pluses. Now coming to certain number which I think may be mind-boggling to all, and some of us do not apply our mind. Just imagine what was the budget she presented in the year 2020. The total expenditure which she has estimated at that point of time was 30.4 lakh crore, 30.4 lakh crore on that line. And what was her initial idea was, I will just give a broader number, 22 lakh crore will be my revenue plus what I will say capital receipt on account of some sale of this spectrum, etc., or disinvestment, etc. And 7 lakh 90, roughly 8 lakh crore of that will be the borrowing. And this expenditure of 30 will be funded through 22 receipts, which are revenue receipts or what we call a tax receipt, and 8 lakh crore rupees of the borrowing. And where we have ended in the year 2021 as against this budget estimate, we have incurred an expenditure of 34.50 lakh crore. As against this, can you imagine how much will be the borrowings? Borrowing will be 18.48 lakh crore. You incur an expenditure in an industry, you ask that 34 lakh is your expenditure, gross expenditure, and 18.5 lakh crore roughly is being met from the borrowing. That was the year 2021. And what was the estimate of the income tax and where we have ended up? Income tax was estimated to be 12.5 lakh crore. We ended up with 9 lakh plus crore. Similarly, GST, we were expecting 6.9 lakh crore. We ended with 5.15 lakh crore. So we lost about 30% in the revenue collection in the year 2021. And she has put the slate clear. And now what she did, the bold move she did it. I believe anyone who would have been having the finance and the mathematics at his table and to run the country, she would have got pressure. I succumbed to these numbers, and she would not have taken the courage what she had done for the year 21-22. We all know 2021 was history only. You have to just write down what has actually happened. But the real budget is the 21-22. How she has taken the hit. She said no, expenditure will still continue to be 34.83 crore. She has increased expenditure to it, and increasing capital expenditure substantially from 4.22 to 5.8 lakh crore. And how she is funding? She could have taken, as we have seen in the past, you put a very astronomical high figure of the revenue projection, which you are not able to achieve. She said nothing doing. I am projecting that in the year 2020-21, my net revenue receipts, tax receipts are going to be 15.5 lakh crore. In the year 21-22, it will be just 17.88 lakh crore, which is a very conservative estimate. I have analyzed all 10-year budget, and that is the figure which she has worked out. And where she has worked out figures, despite the economy to be projected to grow what we call nominal GDP by roughly 14 point plus growth, 15% we say. The GDP of the country, India, for the expected 2021 is expected to 194 lakh crore, which is expected to grow to 222 lakh crore in the next year. Meaning thereby, she, even in revenue growth, she has not taken a path on that part. And she still says, no, I will bear with a fiscal deficit of 6.8%. And which means just a borrowing of 14.35 lakh crore. She had just worked out roughly 1,88,000 crore on account of the LIC disinvestment or other disinvestment she's talking about of the organization. And she has not taken a very big call on the dividend from RBI and the public sector. She's very, very conservative. Now, this gives me too few idea what she has done and what are the challenges, which before I come to the various proposal on this issue. Now, what she has done, I believe what she has done is she has cleaned the absolute balance sheet of the government of India. There used to be so many off balance sheet item, which we say extra budgetary item, particularly Food Corporation of India, etc., though expenditure borrowing. One way of doing a window dressing in a budget is, instead of you borrowing yourself, you ask one of the organization, entity or public sector to borrow and to spend. And Food Corporation was one of the area where this thing was happening. Now she has taken a call. No, that item will be a budgetary item, not an extra budgetary item. She had taken a hit, and that's why this expenditure has gone to 34 lakh crore. Another hit she had taken is that while estimating the receipt for the next year, she has been very, very conservative, making sure that tomorrow people have confidence and do not lose confidence. If you say, I will get 60% marks and you get 70, people will be happy. But if you say 60 and you get 55, people will say, no, you said 60, you got 55. So this time she has taken a call. The budget 21, 22, the next year when she will present in 22, nobody will be able to say that what your budget estimate were and where you are. I'm reasonably confident the budget estimate of this year, which she has projected for 21, 22, will be, actual result will be much better than the projection collection, because she has been very, very conservative on this part. Now, having said so, when such type of borrowing happen, where I said out of this 34 lakh crore, 18 lakh is the borrowing, you can imagine what can happen. And next year the borrowings are substantial, again 14 lakh crore. What can happen? There are three challenges which the economy can face. One challenge is, of course, when more money is pumped into, of course, the inflation is likely to happen. If inflation happens, the poor person suffer because essential item becomes costlier and the poor manage to spend without increase in its income. Second thing, industry may suffer because the interest rate may go up, because the government of India will be doing a lot of borrowing and that interest rate may go up on that side. And the third challenge is that the number of fiscal deficit, which are, I think, quite high, may create a situation where the credit rating of the country, the rating agency may try to rework out this number on this issue. But I am quite confident that all these three things are not likely to happen. The reason being, obviously, if the government stick to the agenda and in a disciplined manner, get all these implemented, then there is no reason to fear for these three issues which are likely, which people are thinking about it. If the government expends the money the way it has projected, it meet the capital expenditure, it do the, I think, highways, roadways, transport, irrigation, everywhere, then definitely this will give a flip to the economy. If it gives a flip to the economy, there will be a growth in employment. A growth in employment will create a demand in the market. And if a demand is created, obviously people will be earning more, and people will be earning more. The government will be able to get increase its resources by way of taxes and other collection. And if those resources comes up, there is no reason why there should be any challenge to the fiscal deficit or etc. Now, this is the change I am looking into. And I am quite confident about this government without getting into the other issues or the issue. So far execution is concerned, I have seen it. They are determined and they will be able to do it. So we need to have a confidence as an industry that this government will be able to deliver and to spend the money the way it has been projected. And if it happens in a, what's the implementation, which we say the challenge, if the implementation is done, it will be very, very high. I have seen various ministers doing it. Particularly, I can talk about the minister who looks after road transport, etc. The way he has been working, I think it's a road example. Finance minister did refer to the way the National Highway Authority has been working, how many kilometers of road has been constructed and how much road is in the pipeline, which is likely to happen on that part. That's all I believe to work it out. So these are the, I will say, overall budget number, etc. And now we're coming to some of the issue which you may be looking towards. I should talk about the tax proposal, etc. As I said, everybody got everything what he wanted, but didn't get the one thing which he was expecting. The tax. No increase in tax rate anywhere substantially. And this must be disappointing to those people who have been thinking some change will happen. Yesterday I was giving some lecture. I said all those people who print this ready reckoner for taxation must be disappointed, because the last year ready reckoner will be easily workable for this year, because absolutely no change. So for individual, partnership firm, LLPs, company, cooperative society, income tax, absolutely no change. People year after year, every year print this ready reckoner to compute your tax liability. So there is no need. Whatever your calculations have been done in the preceding year, your calculation will be applicable the next year. Moreover, when she had not changed the tax rate, she has not changed the deduction also. So that people were accepting medical claim will go up. People will say my interest deduction should go up. ATC should go up. Standard deduction should be more. Say nothing doing. Absolutely right. No change. Nothing will happen. Please continue to have your book, old book, and you can use and very well appoint on this point. That's a good news. I believe is a very good news on this issue. But some corrective measures have been taken in order to make India a little bit more attractive, which is rightly so. Our Indian economy is now globalized economy, and I believe people believe in Indian economy, and people will need to invest. All they want ease of doing business, and there are teething problem arising there on the issue. And one of the agenda which I could see of this present government, I am noticing from the year 2015, when the second budget was presented, the then Finance Minister Arun Jaitley, about the International Financial Service Center at Ahmedabad, which we call Gift City. This is going to be what I'm thinking is the dream, I believe, of the Prime Minister is to make it as a completely in a city in itself, where you have all the benefit of what we call an advanced financial city, maybe Singapore or maybe any other place which people can do business. So efforts are on to make sure that what you do or your activity, that will be absolutely free and you need not go for any hassle. And this budget is also not because years after year, every time amendment is made about any activity, they are being exempt in the gift city, etc. Since many of you are deal in capital market, I believe this is an invitation to all of you to have your operation in that gift city also. Because the way the income and activities are being exempted, I think I have not seen that way. Idea is that people who want to do business with India, people who want to have a capital market investment in India, they need not make investment sitting in Singapore or Mauritius or from that route, etc. And one of the change which had been made for that purpose was, now what has been said that there can be there are various funds which are operating at various places, which we are considered to be the original fund. And if they can get relocated to the gift city, absolutely there will be a tax-free and tax-neutral environment. And I can tell you because you can capital market how this is going to operate. See, there is a fund which is operating from Singapore or a fund which is operating from Mauritius, and that fund has made investment in Indian company, etc. If that fund wants to change its to a new fund, what will happen is the shares held by it in the company, in Indian company, the moment it transfers to another fund becomes a transfer and it becomes chargeable to tax. Now this finance bill says now this fund, which is an outside fund, gets relocated to the GIFT, the International Financial Services Center, and all those shares which were there are transferred to the new resulting fund, and all those people who were the unit holders in that contributor there in that fund, they also become the contributor in the same ratio in which they were there. Then it will be absolutely a tax neutral, no tax on the fund, no tax on the shareholder, and even those companies where these funds were holding share, their carry forward loss, etc., all benefit will be available. I believe this is a very, very big change which has been made to make the gift city an attractive city on that part also. Another change which is to attract the investment is about the sovereign fund and the pension fund. You will not notice that last year, income of the sovereign fund in respect of dividend, capital gain, interest, etc., have been exempted, etc. And sovereign wealth fund and pension fund, etc. Some of the issues have come up this year that what they need to do and what they need to do. Now, whatever was the teething problem in these sovereign wealth fund, etc., that has also been taken care of also. Whatever may be the situation, whether and now the sovereign fund can make an investment through a company in India established, where at least 75% of the funds are invested into infrastructure fund, condition, etc. Only thing is that in case they deviate from infrastructure, it will be the proportionate income which will be exempt, not the fully exempt. So that is, I believe, also a very big relief which has been given in the budget, and it should really, I believe, encourage a sovereign wealth fund and the pension fund to make investment in India, because it is absolutely tax free and they can have whatever they do in their country, they can do it. Even the condition whether there is liable to tax in that country or not, that has also been exempted on that part also. Similarly, now infrastructure, to encourage the bond market, infrastructure debt fund. Last year it was infrastructure equity fund, etc. Infrastructure debt fund has also been encouraged. Further, zero coupon bond is also being allowed to these funds also. So these funds will be able to issue zero coupon funds also, etc. I hope zero coupon funds, you are aware, is a very important tool for tax planning, because what you get for a 1 lakh rupees bond at 10,000, 20,000 rupees to get 1 lakh rupees, your income gets charged as a capital gain, not as a regular income. So it is a very important tool which has been worked out. Another change which has been worked out, that now the government want to encourage that the urban cooperative bank, which particularly in the area of Maharashtra, Gujarat and Karnataka are there a good number of good cooperative banks, the RBI want intend that they can switch over to regular banking company. Now there was one of the hurdle is that if these urban cooperative bank get switched over to banking company, the income tax was a trouble, the capital gain and tax was doing. Now this finance bill has made an amendment saying that when an urban cooperative bank get transferred to a regular banking company, then there will be no tax liability. It will be absolutely a tax neutral working. So this should encourage, I believe, some of the very big and good cooperative banks to switch over to the banking and to avail the benefit of the regulation. And this will encourage to a regular banking, better transparency, better monitoring, and better safety for the depositor as well as the borrowers which are there on that part. Another change which I believe may be helpful and which I believe probably has been done to ensure that privatization is on the smooth line and working goes on. We all know there is a section 72A in income tax, whereby amalgamation and mergers are allowed on that basis. And it is a tax neutral. Normally, when a company get merged into another company, the carry forward losses of the company which is getting merged get lost. But where a merger is an approved merger in case of a manufacturing company or a banking company, etc., that benefit is allowed, etc. Now, government probably is intending to privatize public sector company, etc. And in some of the cases before privatization, government is thinking of demerging some of the unit, etc. So a public sector company may be having different undertaking, different field, so they may demerger. So now it has been said that where a company get demerged, public sector company get demerged, and another company is undertaking made, which is a public sector company, this demerger need not necessarily be under the normal provision of the Companies Act. So meaning thereby, this even when the government want to demerge by way of only an agreement or etc., without going through the process of a Companies Act, etc. requirement, etc., such demerger will also be eligible for tax benefit. And there is another important clause which when I was reading out, I was talking to Bhushanji today afternoon, when I was asking him what I should cover in my deliberation. Should I focus more on the nitty-gritties of taxation, which may be relevant for chartered accountant doing practice, or should I deal with more with the capital or industry? So then I told him, when I was reading it out, is another interesting provision which has been created on that part. Because the condition, one of the condition which has been worked out is that in case you demerge, the other company should be a public sector company also. Now there is, and in case there is a demerged public company, it cannot amalgamate with any other company. Now the law has been being amended to provide that in case a demerger of a public sector company take place, and in the demerger there is another company which takes it over, that company is not in a position to amalgamate with any other company because of the agreement entered into with the government of India at the time of disinvestment. and within a period of 5 years thereafter, that company intent after that agreement has come to amalgamate, the benefit will still be available. I just thought which company we are contemplating. I immediately thought about Air India. Now, what the Air India is being contemplated to be disinvested by the company, and there will be a private payer which will be coming up. Looking to the large employment base and other, there is a possibility that one of the conditions may be that this Air India will continue to be existence for at least 5 years. And later on, in case Tata's take it over, they can amalgamate it with what we call Vistara or other company or Air Asia, whatever they are running, etc. So that enabling provision is being created that private sector company which takes it over a public sector unit undertaking and amalgamation take place later on, still the benefit they can continue of the carry forward losses and etc. And they will not lose the benefit of carry forward loss and depreciation. Only with the one rider, that only that carry forward loss and depreciation which was there on the day when this private sector company has taken the public sector company, not thereafter the losses, which is rightly so. I believe that is what has been done. So meaning thereby, if Government of India has a public sector company which is suffering losses today, they have accumulated losses, etc., etc., that company is hived off to some private sector, and that private sector operates it. He will not be, may not be able to, I think, amalgamate within a period of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years because of the agreement. But later on amalgamate, he will have the advantage of all the carry forward losses. I believe this will create a value for that company also, because when you are carrying forward losses, you are carrying an asset, because that losses can be set off against your future income. I believe that's a one change which has been made very, very, very importantly on that part also. These are the changes on that part. Then there are certain changes which have been made keeping in mind the foreign companies also. We all know that there are many companies which have made investment in India and which it's not FDI, which is FPI, for FDI. Now, when we make investment in India, earlier the dividend was taxable at the threshold as a dividend distribution tax. From last year onward, we have converted now dividend distribution tax to be taxed in the hand of the company. Now, with the result, foreign companies who are holding shares in Indian company are either liable to pay tax under the what we call a tax rate prescribed under the income tax rate at the rate of 20%, or at a rate which is lower under the treaty. India has got a treaty with many countries, whereby the tax rate on dividend is 5 to 10 or 15%. We have a 5% tax rate with Germany, Hong Kong. We have a 10% rate with England. We have a 15% rate with Singapore, 10% with UAE, etc. So if investment has come into India from those countries, the dividend will be. Now a problem has arisen. What will happen to the minimum alternate tax, which is chargeable to tax at the rate of 15% more than the dividend tax rate? So now the law is being amended to clarify that for the purpose of minimum alternate tax, this dividend income will be exempt. So dividend income will not be taken into consideration and will be excluded while computing book profit for levy of minimum alternate tax. That's a change which have been worked out on this part as issue. Now, these are the issue which I believe is that there was another small anomaly which may be relevant for the non-resident, I believe Indian, etc., regarding the retirement contribution to the retirement which they make when they go abroad. And by and large, when they are abroad and with non-resident Indian but resident of that country, they contribute money to their retirement fund, etc. And when they come back to India, the money which they receive from that retirement fund is chargeable to tax on accrual basis. But problem arises is that in those countries, the income is chargeable on cash basis. To address that point, also it has been clarified that these type of non-resident will be eligible to take the benefit and will be taxed as per the income which is arising thereon, and the benefit of deduction of tax therein will be available as we get in the case of areas of salary for the salaried employees. So these are the changes which have been made for the purpose of what we call to address the various anomalies to attract the foreign investment, etc., etc. Now, for the Indian condition, I believe there are two good things which have been done. One was the affordable housing, which was going to expire, exemption was going to expire on 31st March 21. Now the project approved for affordable housing up to 31st March 2022 will continue to have the exemption of its income. Affordable housing is a very good area which I believe can change the, I think, employment horizon of India. It is the real estate is the biggest employer of the unskilled labor. And in that direction, now not only the developed income arising from the development of affordable housing, but also the renting of the affordable housing, that will also be exempt. I am of the strong view, looking after the fate of these migrant labor after post-lockdown, the way they have been traveling from various places, I could imagine that a large number of Indian population who operates and works as a migrant labor, maybe of Assam going to Karnataka, maybe of Bihar going to Punjab, or Gujarat or Maharashtra, where there is country, they do not have any place to live in. And there is no structured data, there is no structured vertical. And these migrant labor, by and large, get employed in the MSME sector. And MSME sector is not in a position to provide housing or the basic necessities to these migrant labor. Take a case, a unit which is operating, having a 5, 10 crore, 15 crore rupees of turnover, making a profit of 10, 15, 20 lakh or 30, 40, 50 lakh a year. It cannot buy land to make house for the employees. It is engaging. It pays minimum wages to the employees, that's all. But as a country, we are developing and we are heading to a developed nation. We need to address the need of everyone. And that is why I believe this renting of the affordable housing is an important area where the government unused land can be monetized and can be given on a long-term lease to the various developers, which can develop it on a long-term lease. And the model can be different model, board, BOT, whatever it is. You can build, operate, and use, and then transfer, or like 30 year, 50 year you did. And this will create a housing, rental income you earn, because then housing is available. You can rent it out to the employer, and then employee can give it to the employees, or employee can directly take on rent, where common facilities can be provided for all those, good hygiene, good health, kitchen, canteen, all these issues. This will improve the life of the migrant labor. Hygiene will improve the and efficiency of the industry also wherever they are working. So this can be a very good area opportunity, and this budget does indicate that government is heading toward that part. So this renting of the affordable housing is going to be another area which is a very good area which has been worked out, and a tax exemption has been given on that part also. As I said, no budget can be completed in the last 6-7 years unless you touch upon the GIFT City or Interfinancial Center. Same is with the startup. If the finance minister does not talk about the startup, the budget will be incomplete. So this budget, she has also talked about the startup, and the exemption which is available to startup or having a new startup, that period was expiring on 31st March 21. That has also been extended by 1 year to 31st March 22. So to avail the exemption in case you start on this part. These are some important changes which have been made and which are positive side. But there are something which has to be taken care of when people try to misuse some of the provision of the income tax or other tax laws. And one of the provision was goodwill. We all know that goodwill, how and goodwill were there. I believe somewhere in 1998, government amended the Income Tax Act to consider intangible assets like know-how, patent, etc., as also an asset eligible for depreciation. And when the Supreme Court was interpreting this provision of intangible assets or any asset of a similar nature, they said goodwill is also an intangible asset and it is also eligible for depreciation. And the rate prescribed for intangible asset is 25%. So many people were using goodwill as a tool of a tax planning. And this was rampant in the case where slum sale was happening. Because you buy some running company undertaking or you buy some unit, etc., where the tangible asset value is say 5 crore, 10 crore or 15 crore, but you are buying it for 50 crore. So what you used to do? You put the same value, what is the book value in the books, and the difference was being considered as a goodwill you have paid for acquiring that company or undertaking or so, and then you were claiming depreciation on that part. Now the government has said goodwill will not be eligible for depreciation. However, it shall continue to be a capital asset. The result in a simpliciter, if I want to make you to understand, is as we buy land, Land is a capital asset, but no depreciation is allowed on land because land never get depreciation. Same is the logic which the finance minister has given, that land goodwill never get depreciated, so it will not be eligible for depreciation. And this amendment is retrospective, yani ki for the current financial year that is running in 1st April 20 onward will not be eligible. So in case you are claiming depreciation and it is forming part, so please make sure that you will not be able to claim depreciation, and you need to revise your advanced tax estimate if you have calculated depreciation as one of the item while computing your advanced tax liability on that part. So goodwill will not be eligible for depreciation. There are consequential amendment which has been made. Similarly, goodwill, in case you have made an actual purchase of the goodwill by paying money, that value will be allowed while computing your capital gain, etc. But self-generated value will not be eligible for computing depreciation. Of course, one more amendment which has been made on the same line is regarding the slump sale. Now, when you make a slump sale, your income is chargeable to tax. The money which you get for a total slump sale of the undertaking minus the book value you are having as per Income Tax Act in your books. But there were few decisions that in case when you do such type of slump sale, without getting money in cash or check, but in kind, like shares in other company or something like this. So I am running a company, I want to buy another undertaking. Instead of giving the money, I say I will allot share of my company. Then some of the court have held that this is not a transfer, this is not a sale to be chargeable to tax. Now this budget, the finance bill clarify, no, this will be a transfer sale and this will be chargeable to tax. I am of the view, frankly, this type of amendment was required and that need to be done on that part. As a chamber and as an industry, we need to be careful of one or two more amendments which have been made and which will need to be made. Government is concerned about the labor, and they say whatever you deduct from the labor salary on account of PF, ESI, etc., you need to make the payment before the due date. And due date under that law, Provident Fund 15th or ESI 18th, whatever the date of the month, you need to make the payment. In case there is a delay even of a single day, that expenditure will not be allowed. Frankly speaking, I am of the view that this amendment is not required and should not have been done. There will always be some emergency and contingency, some natural calamities, some personal problem, health issue, other issues, banking issue, my supplier check, my buyer check getting bounced, etc. And if Provident Fund is not deposited on 15th or deposited in 16th, you will say that this deduction will not be allowed. I believe this is a draconian. All you should have, and the reason why it is being said so, that labor employee payment should be made at a due time. I agree. But in case deduction is not allowed for all time to come, I will never make the payment once there is a delay. On 15th or 16th, now in case you allow me somewhat will say gestation period or some grace period, I will be. So when we say in all other cases, deduction will be allowed, provided the same is made before the due date of filing the return. So that will be good. Now, my suggestion to the chamber, since I am addressing a chamber member here, will be that to take up this issue and to convince the government, not make a law which is so harsh with the deduction is denied for all time to come. I have no sympathy with the people who delayed and defaulted, because in case there is a delay or default, and PF and ESI take care of interest, penalty, etc., leviable under that act itself. But under the Income Tax Act, I do agree, please don't give the deduction if there is an unduly delay. Unduly delay means delay beyond the filing of the return. So when I file the return with tax and then interest, that matter ends. That will be another idea. Another amendment, which maybe I believe is good amendment, which was frankly announced in the pandemic in the mini budget, that in the case of a real estate developer, if they are holding an inventory of the residential unit flats and which they are not able to sell because the circle rates are higher than the circle rate at the rate at which the market is, they are likely to sell. The income tax allows a 10% leverage of the rate over what you have paying, different with the circle rate. But in order to allow these real estate developer to get rid of the inventory, an announcement was made somewhere in the month of October that they can do it with a 20% variation. So meaning thereby now a residential unit can be sold by a developer with a gap or with a difference of 20% between the circle rate and the actual price, provided it is a new residential unit. Allotment is made by the builder, and this allotment is between 12th of November to 30th June 2021. This is the amendment which has been made on this part, Now I raise a 2 point that, and similar benefit will be available to the buyer. In his hand also the income will not be added on him. I am frankly of the view that this pandemic or the crisis or whatever the real estate is showing is not a temporary for 6 months. It is a regular crisis which has happened. It will take its own time before the market goes up and etc. If we are convinced, either we say a builder is manipulating, then he has no concession. But if we are convinced that the real estate prices are really down by 20%, then why to keep a tag of 30th June 2021? Do we want a developer to sell a flat at a value more than the market value? No. So idea is that this 20, now we should, as a chamber, I will suggest, can persuade the government to please make sure that this 20% deduction, flexibility is available across the board without 2 crore rupees ceiling. And it is not necessary that only the allotment should, or original allotment, it can be a subsequent. I have booked a flat. Some of the one reason I am not in a position to pay the further installment. I want to transfer it to somebody else. And now the market rate for me will be the same which a developer is giving. But if the developer is original allotment, and 20% variation will be allowed. But if I am selling as a secondary sale, it will be 10%. Then who will buy from me? Nobody will buy, and the market will suffer as it is. And there is a need to give a push to the real estate, and there should be no threshold limit of 2 crore rupees which is capped out. Beyond that, it will not be allowed. No condition of new residential unit, and 20% should be allowed across the board. This will really give a big flip to the youth. We have seen the experience which has happened in Maharashtra and Karnataka. Now, Maharashtra government and Karnataka government came out with a scheme that the stamp duty rate will be half till 31st December, and then 75% in case you make a registration by 31st March 2021. A lot of people did it. So that give a flip to the real estate industry. The same is required here to work in tandem in order to address the economic crisis which we are passing through. The best way is to give a boost to the real estate, which is the largest employer of the unskilled labor on that part on this issue. These are the changes which have been made. Now, Vijay, how much time I have? Because I'm seeing it is 5:24 already, and there will be other speakers who have to speak. So I can stop or their time. I leave it to you.
Sir, I would much that we are enjoying your entire presentation, but I would, because there are other speakers and I think they had some time limits, because I would request you to conclude, and then we can.
That's why I stopped in between. I just look at the watch. 5:24. I said my time has gone beyond much time on the issue. I will just take just tabulate what are the other changes which may affect, I think, on this issue. Another major change is regarding a partnership form where you take money over and over capital account. Now it will be chargeable to tax in the hand of the firm if you take any money over and above the capital account from a partnership firm. Another important change which has been made is regarding the income reassessment, which is the reopening of the assessment, and the search and seizure cases. Earlier, the moment a search was carried out, 1 + 6, 7-year case got reopened now. Now it will be 1 + 3, except where the detection of concealment is 50 lakh rupees or more, which is represented by an asset. In that case, it will be 10 years. Now, assessing officer will not be required to record a reason, etc. On the basis of the risk management strategy of the department, CBDT, etc., he will carry out an inquiry, and after carrying out an inquiry, he will issue a notice and assessment will be done. And reassessment also cannot be done for a period of more than 3 years, and this is a big change. Time period for filing revised return, time period for filing belated return is being reduced by 3 months. That's another change which has been made. Simply, time period for completing issuing notice for scrutiny, completing assessment is also being reduced by 3 months wherever it was there on that part. Settlement commission has been abolished from day before yesterday, 1st April 2021. So all applications which have been filed will be dealt with a different board, which will be the interim board, which they they will constitute, but no new application can be filed. Now this will put pressure on the industry, etc., because Vanshu committee way back in 1976 has given a report that people do commit mistake, and in course we continue to have litigation. There will be no end to litigation. So some exit window has to be given, and that's why settlement commission was working. But with the abolition of the settlement commission, it will put a big challenge to all those cases where complexity comes. One way we want to reduce litigation, we are having Vivad Se Vishwas scheme, and other way we want to put an end to Income Tax Settlement Commission. That we don't. There is another forum which has been created, Dispute Resolution Committee, but surprisingly the threshold capped is too low. None of the people will be eligible. They say only those person whose income returned is 50 lakh rupees or less, and where the dispute is of 10 lakh rupees or less. I believe by and large disputes are more than 10 lakh rupees. For people of less than 10 lakh rupees, where tax calculation at best will be 3 lakh rupees, even the professional fee he will not be able to pay to prepare and argue a case before the Dispute Resolution Committee, where 3 chief commissioners will be sitting, I believe. I believe somewhere this need to be revisited. In case Settlement Commission is supposed to be abolished, then for Dispute Resolution Committee, the threshold should be removed. Now, surprisingly, in the Settlement Commission, the minimum condition was that you need to pay additional tax of 3 lakh, then only you will go. Now it is there, if you have a tax of more than 3 lakh, you are not eligible. So it is contrary, somewhere this model may not work. Nothing to do with, you can replace Settlement Commission with the Board of Interim Board, but please, Dispute Resolution Committee, please allow those people to have more income to get settled their dispute in that committee. Nothing harm in that part, on that part. Similarly, Authority for Advance Ruling is being abolished and being substituted by the Board of Advance Ruling, where both party, department and the taxpayer which have gone to for ruling will have a right to file an appeal. Another change, which may be last change, which I may just share with you, is regarding the tax reduction at source on sale of goods now. We all know last year we have a provision was inserted where tax collection was to be done in case you have made a purchase of more than 50 lakh rupees and then for a sale of 50 lakh rupees from the buyer and your turnover is 10 crore more. Now a reverse provision has been introduced. In case your turnover is more than 10 crore rupees and you have made purchase of 50 lakh rupees or more, 0.1% TDS has to be deducted from the other person. Frankly speaking, these 2 amendments last year and this year are because of the GST, where government is facing a problem of fake invoices and a fake input credit, etc. But the time consumed by the industry and the paperwork and the way it is handled is mind-boggling. Somewhere the industry need to take up this issue when we are talking of ease of doing business, that compliance cost and the way time and energy being spent by the industry is too high. People have prepared software last year of TCS because all the TCS will now be applicable when TDS is not applicable. And by and large, in case your sale, you are more than 10 crore rupees, and then you have made a purchase of 50 lakh rupees, you will be deducting TDS. And if TDS get deducted, TCS will not be applicable. So this will, I believe, again create a situation where people will find compliance may be difficult. But on the whole, as I said in the beginning, this budget is a thumbs up budget. I think in the recent past, I think a very few instances are there in the past, in the last 3 decades. I can recollect only 2, Justice Mr. Manmohan Singh budget and then 1996 budget. These were called a thumbs up budget. So this budget of 2021 will fall in that category. And Madam Finance Minister has been true to her advertisement, which she has been saying it will be a budget of the century. I believe this is the first budget of this century, which can be counted as a budget. Thanks to Vijay Bhushan ji, thanks to entire all people for inviting me and spending time and listening me often. Thank you, friends. Thank you.